Welcome to Unit 1, Foundations of Multicultural Education. This podcast is meant to supplement the reading of Chapter 1 in your text, just as future podcasts will supplement, but you still need to make sure that you're reading the chapters. Let's start with the big overriding question. Why do we even need a course called Cultural Diversity Issues in the Classroom or in Education? Take a minute to think about that. Pause the podcast if you'd like. As we're thinking about the question, listen to this. By the year 2020, students of color are projected to be nearly half of the school population. However, 84% of teachers are white and 75% are female. Many schools are very diverse. 30 years ago, many of our teachers lived in the same neighborhoods that they taught in and knew the students and their families outside of school. However, today, many teachers commute from other communities. We have to work really hard to understand all of our students and to provide the best education possible. So, where do we start? Well, let's look at multicultural education and see what that is. Multicultural education examines the relationships and interactions of various cultural groups and how the cultural backgrounds of individuals affect the behavior of each. It examines racism, sexism, handicapism, prejudice, discrimination, and oppression. Multicultural education examines and encourages schools to emphasize equality and social justice. James Banks says, multicultural education is an idea, an education reform movement, and a process whose major goal is to change the structure of educational institutions so that male and female students, exceptional students, and students who are members of diverse racial, ethnic, language, and cultural groups will have an equal chance to achieve academically in school. Thinking about this definition, shouldn't we as teachers want all students to have an equal chance to achieve academically in school? Teacher certification standards are increasingly addressing multicultural proficiencies necessary for licensure. In your reading, you'll see the INTASC standards that address diversity. Rate yourself and see how you're doing and what you still need to work about and think about. We know that we will have students who come from many different cultures. Let's think about culture. What is culture? Well, culture is a blueprint that determines how we think, feel, and behave in society. It provides accepted and patterned ways of behavior necessary for people to live together. It allows us to predict how others will behave in certain situations. Culture is learned, shared, and adaptation and dynamic. It's manifested through values, nonverbal communication, and language. So culture is made up of symbols. Anything that carries a particular meaning recognized by people who share culture, language, a system of symbols that allow people to communicate with another, values, culturally defined standards by which people assess desirability, goodness, and beauty, and that serve as broad guidelines for social living, abstract standards of goodness. Beliefs are specific statements that people hold to be true. Beliefs are particular matters that individuals consider true or false. And finally, norms. Norms are the rules and expectations by which a society guides the behavior of its members. Most important norms in a culture apply everywhere and at all times. So thinking about these 5 things, what would you consider the American culture to be? We were founded in a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. Is there an American culture today? I believe that we do have symbols, language, values, beliefs, and norms that make us uniquely American. How we view the world may be different than how other people view the world. With that being said, the concepts of equality and individualism are fundamental and core values in this country. Sometimes they oppose each other. We speak for equality for all, yet demand the right for individualism and the ability to choose one's own happiness and pursue personal resources. The privileged have so much of the resources, but are reluctant to share or give up any of it for the sake of equality. As we continue to read and talk about foundations of multicultural education, make sure you understand the following terms. Both enculturation and socialization work together as the individual learns how to act in a particular society. Enculturation is the process of acquiring the characteristics of a given culture and become competent in its language and ways of behaving and knowing. And socialization is the general process of learning the social norms of the culture. For example, what is expected in social roles, such as a mother, husband, student, child. Acculturation is in essence adopting or taking on the culture of a new group. It usually involves immigrants taking on the culture of the dominant group as their own. This may include taking on a new language, a new set of core values, dress, customs, new food, and so forth. The immigrant family or individual usually decides the degree to which acculturation will take place. Assimilation, then, is another term that you need to know. During assimilation, the group's distinctive cultural patterns can become part of the dominant culture, or they can disappear as a group adopts the dominant cultures. Policies that impact children in adopting the dominant culture are often reflected in the informal curricula of schools. More terms that you need to make sure you know are listed here. Ethnocentrism is the inability to view other cultures as equally viable alternatives for organizing reality. Ethnocentric individuals view other cultures as strange, inferior, or wrong. In cultural relativism, it's an attempt to understand other cultural systems in your own terms in the context of their own cultural beliefs. An old Native American proverb best describes cultural relativism. Never judge a man until you have walked a mile in his moccasins. So think about that. And understanding another culture first begins by clearly understanding your own culture. Biculturalism or multiculturalism is individuals who have competency in two or more different cultures and can function proficiently in them. In cultural pluralism, it's a result of groups refusing or not being permitted to assimilate into the dominant American culture. Many immigrant groups have maintained their own unique ethnic groups or enclaves. For example, Chinatown in San Francisco. And finally, meritocracy. Those who support the concepts of meritocracy believe that inequalities are the natural outcome of individual differences. Historically oppressed groups are seen as inferior, and their hardships are due to their own characteristics. In this view, it ensures that the ablest, hardworking, and talented acquire the most, achieve the most, and become leaders. So you've now had a brief introduction to the foundations of multicultural education. Think about these beliefs and the assumptions of multicultural education. Cultural differences have strength and value. Schools should be models for the expression of human rights and respect for cultural differences. Social justice and equality for all people should be paramount in importance. Attitudes and values necessary for the continuation of a democratic society can be promoted in schools. Schools can provide the knowledge, disposition, and skills for the redistribution of power and income among diverse groups. And finally, educators working with families and communities can create an environment that is supportive of multiculturalism. So as we close, think about the question on your screen. We need to be prepared to teach all of the students that are sitting in our classroom. Thanks for listening. Please complete the rest of the items on your agenda for a better understanding of multicultural education. Please let me know if you have any questions.